Welcome to Kinship Cafe. I am your host, Jim Jones, and today we are joined with Justin Froese.
What's up, Jim?
Hey, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited about our topic today. We're going to be talking about self-expanding.
Love it.
Yeah, and I don't think we're talking about weight.
No, hopefully not. Yeah.
That's good, because I'm trying to do the opposite. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, just before we get started, would you like to open us with a song?
Would love to, yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
Does this end? How does this go? How did we start? How did we know? Thinking backwards as I'm moving on. So nothing changes if you don't decide. It can be better, better. What is this? Better, better. It's hard to see how things can get better. That's why I'm stuck, I'm frozen like a stone to the breeze. Heavy sinking and overthinking and sinking to my knees. Now I'm cracking, I'm crumbling, who I am is falling apart. I'm broken down and just sort of around, don't know where to start. Don't know where to start. It's a strange release when you know you're stuck. And comes the shame that you messed up. Thinking backwards as I'm moving on. So nothing changes if you don't decide. It can be better, better. What is this? Better, better. It's hard to see how things can get better. That's why I'm stuck, I'm frozen like a stone to the breeze. Heavy sinking and overthinking and sinking to my knees. Now I'm cracking, I'm crumbling, who I am is falling apart. I'm broken down and just all around, don't know where to start. Tell me there's a better way out than letting go the end of my rope. Such a strange design that every time we break before we're better. Maybe it's better. I was stuck, frozen like a stone to the breeze. Heavy sinking and overthinking and sinking to my knees. Now I'm cracking, I'm crumbling, and I just want to be whole. I'll take what's left of my weeping breath. Now this is where to start. This is where to start. This is where to start. Who I am is where to start.
Wow, that's a great song, Justin. Is that one you wrote?
Yes, I did. I
So
wrote that.
Tell me a little bit about it. What's it called?
Yeah, that song is called Where to Start. And I wrote it at a time when I was going through some tough family times. Like my dad had just passed on, and I was with my mom and sister in the car, sometime after that, and we're all in the grief and the stress of grief, and they were, sometimes under the influence of grief and stress, we act and behave certain ways. And they were simply just speaking their mind, and it wasn't mean. It was, the intention was supportive, but for me it was like, okay, like too much, like I got it, like just give me some space, but there was something they were responding to within themselves. And so after this like long conversation in the car, I just was like, okay, cool. And went inside and retreated, to my room, and this song just started to come. And it pretty much came all in, the matter of an hour or two.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was sort of that response to like looking back on everything or where you've come from and kind of feeling the weight of your own personal story and, not knowing where to start and moving forward.
Yeah. Was this pretty recent then?
That was about 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
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 So that's still pretty young to lose your dad.
Yeah, it's fresh, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
death is it's one of those interesting things where it is very disruptive, but it also can be very creative in a way. Have you experienced some of that with your own processing of your father's death?
Totally. It's like the forest burns down, and then from the ashes, all this life springs. And for me, because I shared music with my dad, he played music and he taught me music. So I started when I was 5. He was just always playing his own songs.
Yeah,
I was like, I want to do that, and just started, which I'm so grateful for, that early start.
Yeah.
But that was definitely our special bond throughout all of life, and he really supported me and was so proud of me for, I think, doing more with music than he ever could have. So when he passed, I went into this huge space of self-evaluation, as you do.
Yeah.
And I started to question, like, why am I on this path, which is, I know, silly, because some people go, well, because you're so amazing, you're meant to do this. But even when you're in the thick of your own experience, however amazing it is, you still get these times where you're like, okay, like, what am I doing, or where is this going, or and so I kind of let myself fall into a state of questioning and just letting myself do whatever and feel whatever. I wasn't trying to push. Just prior to his passing, because his passing was sudden, I had just gotten this album done and just launched it, and I had all this momentum, and it was like, not right now.
Yeah.
And that's life, Yeah. And so from that time, I really gave myself space to be with things and just to come back to my passion for music in the way I wanted to, when I wanted to, and there'd be no pressure, because I think what I had experienced of my dad was, while he meant well, he worked very hard and sometimes too hard. And the sort of influence of my upbringing of that like overworking, I've gotten my little ups and downs, like every night till 3 a.m. just like doing things and then being like, oh, this is not in balance. So definitely when he passed, sort of in honor of that hard lesson he taught, and I think in my feeling ultimately passed on from, I was like, there's no pushing. I'm just fully. So I didn't write a lot of songs. I wrote some, like that one, but it wasn't like I have to do this. And so I actually like got into yoga a lot more and became a yoga teacher for a little bit. Like became certified. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I just was like, all right, I need something to go deep into, like I do as an artist, but it not be this pressure of like, all right, get that career going. It's like, I just needed to
self-care,
dive into self-care.
Yeah. So going through this process, we can, when we're confronted with death, it can be something that really gets us to think about things, and then we can very quickly kind of close it off again and get back to life as normal. For other people, it really helps to kind of open our awareness of our own mortality and give us kind of a different way of looking at what do we want to do with our life. And that sounds like that's part of what was going on with you. Did you sense some of that going on?
Oh, definitely. I mean, as I sort of alluded to, I was like, why am I just doing music because I was trying to please my dad or bond with my dad? Like, I had to find a deeper why, and I realized in his passing that, like, his presence and our bond, like, carried some of my why. We carried it together in a way. And so when he passed on and, wasn't in form anymore, like, or a form I could see or whatever, it caused me very naturally to look at why I was doing anything.
Yeah.
And at that time too, I was like, well, I don't have to do music, because he passed on when I was like 32, and so at that point, like, I had played music since I was 5. I had played professionally since I was 16. Like, I had a good long time and run at music.
Yeah.
And of course, me giving up on it, I imagine comparing to how he gave up on it, and it was a sticky place to be in.
So you found your way through to coming back to music.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did, because you definitely have a lot to share, I believe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. That's a interesting beginning to our conversation, but a good one.
Yeah, man.
Right? I mean,
into the real stuff.
Right into the real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. So, tell me a little bit more about how this then was. You got into the self-care, and I know we want to talk about, kind of expanding our sense of self, and how do these things play out for you then?
Totally. I mean, the yoga has been a huge thing for me. I noticed in going to yoga that I would feel such a calm, and I mean, I'm already a chill dude, but there, as an artist, you're moved a lot. You have to be, and a lot of empathy and sensitivity to just be aware of things and really go, oh, what's that person going through? Oh, I get it. Okay, how can I? And then you sit with that emotion and churn with it, and like you like, it's like acting. Like, you get into the role of it and be like, what would I say if I was in that position? Oh, and you channel this thing, and so it can be taxing emotionally. I found that yoga was really the only thing that was giving me such a calm, and it would also just like settle the whole snow globe. And then I would feel like I was above my life, like able to see with like eagle eyes and see this whole picture. And once I was in that state, like at the end of a yoga class, I was like, man, I gotta come to this place on the regular.
Yeah.
I need to be here and see my life, because from that vantage point, I just naturally had so much compassion for myself and my struggles and understanding, and go, oh, I see what you're meaning or intending there, but failing to find the words for, and oh, I see like, what you were wanting to do with that, and oh, just speak up. It's just like all this clarity, huge clarity came. So with that, of course you have a taste of that, and then really it's all about living it everywhere except the mat, the yoga mat.
Yeah.
And that's really where a real life self-expansion journey, at least in this recent chapter of life, last maybe 10 years or so, has taken me. It's like through that little train. That's what I've been riding on, is the experience of self-expansion through presence of mind, awareness of breath, and reprioritizing the body, mind, emotional state.
Yeah.
To not always have things in upheaval and be just responding to stress and crisis, but really figure out how to put things in the order that I want them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so key, because for so many of us, life is so busy, right? I mean, it's we're always trying to figure out how are we going to make it, how are we going to pay the bills, all that kind of stuff, that being able to find that time and that space where we can, I love your illustration of letting the snow globe settle, right? You know, just letting the thoughts die down and being able to have that alternative perspective where you can kind of see things, you know, from that other vantage point.
Yeah.
So important, but it's so hard, I think, for a lot of us to get there. Do you have any thoughts on how somebody could begin this kind of a journey if they're struggling to find that kind of space in their own life?
Totally. Right here, right now, in this moment, right as you're watching this, just decide that it's time for a little change, you know, a little step. And do that by acknowledging your need for it and deciding now is the time. I could have picked another time. I could wait till later. I could wait till conditions are better. It's always now. It's all now. And so from this very moment, you know, one little shift in your energy can totally change the course.
I like that.
So I think just giving yourself a moment, just give yourself 10 seconds. Just give yourself 10 seconds to calm down, let the snow globe settle, take a deep breath, and within yourself, acknowledge I mean, that's how I do it. As I let all the words go, and I just return to this place that I've worked to get to, where I just become fully present.
Yeah.
And to be fully present, you like let go of words. You let go of the need to say something or to. And I felt that long pause. I felt you being like, "Is he gonna?" And I was just like, I'm prioritizing my space, and that's part of that self-expansion thing for me, is just allowing.
Yeah.
If I want to feel this moment longer, I will.
I like that.
Yeah, if I want to make space for myself, I will. If I want to get up and go, I will. I don't. I'm enjoying this. But, you know.
Yeah. I interestingly have been working on a mindfulness approach where I'll like to spend time, usually outside, and work on trying to notice what's around me, but doing it in a way where I'm not naming things. Right? So if I see a tree, I'm not calling it a tree or thinking tree. I'm just trying to experience it for what it is. You know, like kind of what you're saying, getting beyond the idea of the words. Because in a certain sense, the words are necessary for how we navigate life, but we forget sometimes that these categories that we create that incorporate, you know, these things isn't the full picture. And to see the full picture, we have to get beyond the categories and see how everything is actually connected. And it's an interesting practice, you know, trying to hear without naming what you're hearing, or colors without naming the colors, is a very interesting challenge. But I found it so rewarding at really being able to just become much more present in that moment and be a part of everything.
Right, because the end goal or the objective, like, why would we even do that? Like, what is that a response to? It could be high stress. It could be the lack of peace. It could be the lack of clarity. It could be the lack of direction. And so it's a response, that choice, you know? And if we know what it is we're wanting and intending, that does orient the way that we go through it. And so for you in that practice, I love that one. It's like, hey, can I notice things and just be in an awareness state that doesn't have an end goal, it doesn't have a checklist, it doesn't have anything to accomplish, because we're so driven by, like, accomplish this, get this done. Hey, have you gotten that done yet? Like, no, I have this. And then we build the story about all the things we haven't gotten done, you know? Yeah.
Well, and it's hard because in reality, I mean, it's all reality, but in one aspect of our reality, there are things that we have to do or we're not going to eat, right?
And then we're not going to survive, maybe.
Yeah, so there is kind of this interesting balancing act, right, where we're trying to find that harmony between doing and not doing, you know, the control and the lack of control.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of us have gone overboard on the control side, and sometimes I think a lot of that's fear-based, right, because we feel like we need to control things or it's not going to work out. But really we need to, in my opinion, really embrace a lot more of this uncertainty and be okay with that. Because as much as we try to control and hold on, we can't.
Totally. And as an artist, my constant, like, how do I want to say this? My constant aim is to not be too in control, not be a perfectionist, not have to let things be. I'm even struggling to like speak about it because I'm like, oh, this is like a big thing, and yeah, I'm trying to be aware of the way I speak about it, so that the way I speak and the energy I speak with doesn't just fold me further into it by confirming it. So that's a wild thing, but that's just like the magic of art. Is like you can dream up any world, you can tell any story, and so why not let this be your art too, you know, and tell this story how you want to. And so that's been a huge part of the self-expansion, is just realizing, oh, there's all these walls I've set up for the things I want or the way I want to experience this life, you know, and once I bump into those, instead of going, yeah, like being curious, and staring at it a little longer, just being like, hello, like, you know,
Where did that come from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and am I done with that? Because the life of the artist is, to me, all flow. And sometimes this big piece of earth just sticks up, and I'm like, it's like messing with my flow. It could be rearranging your flow. It could be redirecting it. But even so, do you stop flowing, or you just go, oh? Yeah, so there's a fluidity in the self-expansion that I'm after as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the Taoist thought that, you know, the Tao is like water, where it just flows, and it doesn't make a distinction between high and low. It just goes where it goes. And
Totally.
And that's kind of how you have to be with life, is, you know, things are going to come up. Could be good, could be bad, who knows? You know, it takes time to see how the story unfolds to know how to even evaluate it, if you can evaluate it.
Totally, and what use your evaluation is. And I mean, what are we, 70% water, and there's water in the atmosphere, water in the ocean, so water is one of the biggest teachers here of like being in an experience of form, you know, where some is stuck, or some takes a long time, or some it has a lot of resistance, and some just like evaporates. And you know, water's been a huge thing for me. It comes up a lot in my songs.
Really?
Yeah, the river and the ocean and rain, because I mean, what else do we have that can take all those different forms and move between them? Solid, liquid, and gas, you know?
And so essential for life.
Yeah, completely. It is life. Yeah.
Well, like water protectors that we were a part of a while back, water is life. Right?
Yeah.
That was one of the mottos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the wisdoms of all the native cultures, and really the central driving purpose for being a water protector, and being aware when there's a water as a life source being threatened, like, hey, can we say something, can we do something, is there another way? Not being like, it's just water. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's, you know, I think there's less and less people who are so disconnected that they wouldn't see how all these things are related, right? I mean, the day of being able to have that kind of a naive view of our environment and how the world works, I hope is mostly past, right? Because we are having to make some big changes in how we engage in life, you know, in a corporate sense, but also as individuals. And I sense there's a lot of movement that's happening where, people are owning that and taking that on, and that's very encouraging to me. Not that we're done. There's a lot yet to do, but I think that it is like a consciousness that's coming up for more and more people about how integrated everything actually is.
Totally, how connected, and interdependent.
Exactly.
Completely. And I think it's like this moving target. Like you never just get it locked in your sights and then like, cool, I got it. It's like you constantly following, what's happening in the environment. What are scientists saying about what's happening in the environment? What do just your friends in Michigan say about the water they're drinking?
Right.
And
yeah.
Really taking in a view, because it's just like the experience of your own consciousness. If one source or thought comes up and says, oh, you can't do that, and you just believe that one thing, like you saw one thing on the news, and you're like, it's like, well, it could be true and it could not be true. Like get some, like, don't believe it yet.
Yeah.
Like inquire,
Yeah, especially with today's media, we have to be a lot more savvy, and social media and all the hysteria that gets stirred up sometimes. You've got to be very discerning.
Totally. Even with data and science, like the whole interpretation of a data set can be skewed by changing the hypothesis. It could be reoriented to reflect that hypothesis. And so it really gets at like the ability to know anything, to truly know anything, because we do all these temporary knowings to help us get through and survive and navigate this. Otherwise, if I couldn't get past knowing whether I could know anything, I may never leave this table.
Right.
Yeah. And
epistemology.
Then, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big can of worms.
I'm all about the big cans, I guess, today,
Yeah.
But I'm also about being light with them,
Yeah. Well, and I think part of what we see is that our way of knowing is more collective than maybe we think of, because it's, with science, we've got this idea of consensually validatable information, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the more we can have people from different perspectives agree, yes, I can replicate this, I can come to the same conclusions, I can try and poke holes in it, and I'm not find any. It's one of the most successful methods that we've come up with in history at being able to understand what do we actually know.
Yeah. Right?
Because prior to that, it was a lot of, more philosophical thinking, speculation and pondering about things, which led to a wide variety of different positions on things.
Totally.
That would not be all that compatible. And so that really gave us, for the first time in human history, kind of a grounding for a touchstone about, well, what do we know? Because that is such a crucial question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it affects the way we proceed, in life, and the way we connect. And ultimately, there's something in us that wants to know. Whether it ever truly can or not, it will still want to. And that want is part of our drive to connect, to explore, Well,
I think as a species, our human nature is got us wired to want to know, because that's how we survive, right? If, in one sense, we could talk about wisdom is our ability to understand the nature of reality and to work within harmony with that, right? And so if you ignore what we know about gravity, you won't be long for this life.
Right?
Right? So, I think it's just kind of built in that we have to find out, we have to learn, because that's how we navigate our world.
Yeah. I was thinking of that earlier as we were talking about this earth and this earth experience and water and just kind of the whole setup of it. It's just in this perfect balance where if one thing goes in neglect, it could throw off the whole system. And so what's required is an attention to all these various aspects of one system, a body in this atmosphere, or us on this planet, even the molecules in your body, to keep this thing together and moving forward optimally, moving forward I don't know, moving forward through time and space. It's all relative, but I think for me that moving forward part is what I would call a soul destiny, where there's something in the deepest identity of who you are as an entity or a being or even just an idea that can take various forms. And in that is coded by this intelligence of the universe, a trajectory, a course of evolution, a path of growth, an expansion. And we live our lives responding to that, sometimes very directly and effectively, and sometimes like with all sorts of weird compensatory like resistance and silliness. And so I think making the most of this earth experience with the wisdom, with nature, everything in balance and harmony, is to make for the optimal experience of the discovery of that soul destiny. Yeah, because you could check it out some other way in some other part of the universe, I'm sure. But here we are.
Yeah. Like it. So, getting back to the creativity part of things, would you like to share another song with us?
Yeah, would love to.
Right on.
Cool.
Steady, ready, sound the alarm. Not that I do you any harm, but if you don't call, I'll cry. Mama, don't tell me no lies. I'll do anything once to try, over and over, so you know I would hang it up all on you. Got got to hang it up all on you. Got to hang it up all on you. Send a message through the web, pretend I don't care if you're ready. Don't know what to do with my time, just so at the end I won't regret it. Blazing new pathways in my mind, coming up empty all the time. Looking for a cause to get behind, reaching for the stars, praying you'll let me. Got to hang it up all on you. Got to hang it up all on you. Got to hang it up all on you. To hang it up all on you. Got to hang it up all on.
Wow, I totally dig. That's much more kind of a funky vibe on that one.
Yeah.
So
That one's a newer one.
is that right?
Yeah.
So what's this one called?
This one's called Hang It Up.
Mm.
And I wrote it with a friend, Jonathan Jones, who I went to high school with, and we didn't really we knew of each other, but we weren't friends. And then we both had music careers, and we just met back up in life like a year ago and have been working together on stuff. And so one day that song I heard him playing some chords at the piano. I was like, what's that? He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, oh, keep doing it. And it just came. It was beautiful when it happens like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is new. You're getting ready to really. Is it out yet?
No, not yet.
So
Almost.
this was like a debut on our show then.
Yeah, totally.
Hey. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah.
And it's we're working on the recording, and it'll be out hopefully in a couple weeks, and it'll be really the first release or single or anything since my album 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So getting back in the saddle.
Yeah, man, back in. It feels good. I think before, while I worked with people around me, I didn't work with them. That's not fair. I still had some control issues, and so it's like it kept things from happening. And in this last 5 years, I've come to this place of like, all right, like we're just gonna do this together. I don't have to own it. We can own it. We could share in this experience. You know, like maybe that's that clarity that death and grief gives you, that sobering where you're like, this is really all about our togetherness and what comes of our togetherness. The rest of it, whatever. And so I was just like, I'm going to it'll be a different path. I won't have as much control, but I'm going to make things with other people and enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting when you think about collaborating, as somebody who does some creative stuff myself, it is always that challenge of, what am I going to relinquish if I bring somebody else on or if I join with what they're doing? Yeah. And, but at the same time, there's things you can't do just by yourself, right? Like learning how to play together, right? Whether we're talking about music or otherwise, creates this possibility for harmonies and this trading back and forth that can be just magical. Totally. And expand beyond, really kind of like an emergent property that's more than the sum of its parts.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this conversation that happens when two or more things are occurring at once, and when it's pleasant from a certain vantage point, we call it harmony. The agreement of multiple things. But there's even this like push and pull, because if it's all me in the way I want it, it'll sound a certain way, and I've released songs like that. But when it has a mix of elements, then this like third thing emerges, and I think that's where a lot of magic is. Yeah. So I'm just like wildly open to that now.
Right on.
Yeah.
That should be exciting.
Yeah, totally. It is. I've got a lot of things going in that whole way. So, yeah.
It kind of made me think about something else too, going back a little bit to our conversation about awareness and presence, being in the moment. And one of the things I think that's just a really unique gift that musicians receive, and really I think even people who are just listening to it, is music doesn't let you rush to the end, or you can't do it faster. The idea is that you have to be in the experience as it unfolds in the moment, and it really is one of the ways, whether we are intentional about it or not, we get kind of pulled into the present moment, and that's just a beautiful thing.
Completely. And as you were sharing that and I was being present with you, my consciousness was also populating with things related to that, and it helped me realize something I don't think I had before, quite from the standpoint of awareness, is that the people listening to me are put in this state of awareness and presence to me because they're listening.
Yeah.
I mean, they could like start talking and just go about whatever, but usually in a listening situation, there's this mindfulness, this attentiveness naturally, just to experience.
And we're on the same page somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
just amazing?
It's wild.
Yeah,
It's always been.
I think about like with music or even words, that when we're reading or even listening or movie or music, how one person's or a group of people's ideas become common for a moment, and we're all in the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Neural networking.
I like it.
Yeah. I think there's some science emerging on that where as a group, in a group experience, we're all neurally networking to collectively understand the topic or the discussion or what's being presented. When you can anticipate where something's going, it's because we've been networking and sharing a collective experience. And I mean that. I remember going. I mean, my very first concert was Pink Floyd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like their final tour. I was maybe 14 or something, so I was there with my dad and my sister, and it was like epic, of course. But it didn't really sink in for me the power of that collective experience of music until I saw David Gray at the Gibson Amphitheater up in Universal Studios, and I was just like, everyone was singing these words at once, and it just clicked, and I was like, this is like the church, like this is like the music is the religion, like where all these different people are all united around this like message of the heart and the words, and they're all singing it, and they have to, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's the most powerful collective experience.
Yeah, it gets you outside of yourself, right? Which is key to that whole experience of flow and transcendence, is recognizing this greater connection. And it's not by accident that religion uses music where people sing together or chant together or recite things together, because it's all about, bringing that same kind of experience out of people.
Totally. And it's directed, but it's not controlled. It's directed because a song that's known is sung and people sing along.
Yes.
But it's not controlled like sing now, you have to. So wherever there's in human experience a situation where people's musical expression is controlled, then it's suppression of the people and control of them,
right,
versus unifying them. And I'm just aghast at that happening in this world, but here we are. Here we are to like figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what a great time it is. It's definitely got its own challenges. Certainly not the worst that the world has ever seen, but definitely our own challenges.
Definitely.
And it gives us that thing to work on to help bring about that greater realization of what can be.
Yeah, and I think as I expand the peace in my life, and expand the possibilities for myself, like that's my best contribution as a member of this earth world, For a while, I think I would totally put self aside and try to be in a service role, and it was detrimental to me. And so I'm so grateful that I've turned this corner where as part of this journey of self-expansion, where who I want to be or my unique expression is front and center to my service to people. It's fully integrated.
Yeah.
So I'm serving people through who I am, not by being like, oh, I can adapt or I can be that, and
not setting yourself aside.
Yeah.
And that's, again, coming back to that idea of that balance, that harmony, that yin-yang, of both are necessary. You can't have one without the other, but it's in right proportion.
Totally. And it's a moving target, too. It's balance is a moving target. You don't just get it and leave it.
Exactly.
It's just like, it requires you stay engaged with it. You can't just be like, got it.
It's like being on a tightrope. You can't forget where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, perpetual effort. Yeah.
Well, Justin, this has just been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Before we go, can you close us out with one more song?
I would love to.
Fantastic.
Cool.
and miles of highway. Trials and trials have been in my path. Pressing on with no direction. Through the fire, the smoke and ash. Tears, my tears have rained with sorrow. Cursed each day with every breath. Now here I stand with noon tomorrows. I've been lost but found at last. And the heavens say yeah, and the preacher says amen. And the angels say where the head of you been? With arms wide open, we'll all be there. Welcome home, you're finally here. Piece by piece I started over. Step by step I made my way. All you said was just keep going, don't give up, it's not too late. And the heavens say yeah, and the preacher says amen. And the angels say where the head of you been? With arms wide open, we'll all be there. Welcome home, you're finally here. Ooh, I was broken, but I've been saved. Words unspoken made me whole. Amazing grace. Here I stand, my song I'm singing. Raise my voice for all to hear. Your sweet, sweet love, my sweet redemption. I can hear you loud and clear. And the heavens say yeah, and the preacher says amen. And the angels say where the head of you been? And the heavens say yeah, and the preacher says amen. And the angels say where the head of you been? With arms wide open, we'll all be there. Welcome home, you're finally here. With arms wide open, we'll all be there. Welcome home, you're finally here.
Well, that was a nice upbeat song to end on.
Thank you.
Tell me about this one.
Oh, this one, what a gem, man. What a special song. I wrote it with my cousin, Nancy Montgomery, and I had really only met her 2 times in life.
Oh,
It's just, she was a second cousin, and it was just like, we knew of each other, but just, she had her life,
mm-hmm.
and we, see each other once or twice, and then my parents shared with her some of the music I was working on, and she was a hit Nashville country artist in the 80s.
Oh,
Yeah. And so she heard it and was like, oh, wow, like, that's good. So she reached out and said, hey, would you like to write? And I'm like, oh, of course,
wow.
And so we got together and we knew we wanted to write a song about home. And we kind of wrote it with the Lumineers in mind. And so, we're working on songs, and one day she comes home and is like, I got it. I'm like, what? She's like, oh, and this song just came out just all at once.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's been such a special song. It's touched so many people, and it's really just a gift.
So what's the name of it?
Finally Here.
Finally Here.
Yeah.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has this really great moving forward kind of like coming back, and I mean all sorts of like good, like you said, coming home feel to it.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I'm
My
hoping
pleasure.
we get to do this again someday.
Yeah, it'd be fun, man.
Yeah.
Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
My pleasure.
Cool.
All right. Be well, everyone.
Well,